The thunder crashed overhead as Willow Rose clutched her swollen belly, her body giving way beneath her at the edge of the roaring Platte River. The spring floods had come early in 1875, turning the normally gentle waterway into a churning mass that mirrored the turmoil in her own life. Her knees sank into the muddy bank as another pain racked her body. She was alone, miles from the nearest settlement, abandoned by the man who had promised to take her west to start a new life. 6 months pregnant and now destitute, she had been walking for days after the stagecoach driver had forced her off for being unable to pay the remainder of her fare. "Help," she whispered, though there was no one to hear her pleas over the howl of the approaching storm. The first drops of rain began to fall, cold against her feverish skin. Her vision blurred as she collapsed fully onto the riverbank, the mud soaking through her threadbare dress. Wade Caldwell pulled his hat lower as he urged his horse along the riverbank. The rancher had been tracking a small herd of his cattle that had broken away during the last storm, and he was eager to get back to his cabin before the skies opened up again. His bay stallion, Thunder, snorted and balked suddenly, ears pricked forward toward something near the water's edge. "What is it, boy?" Wade asked, squinting through the gloom. That's when he saw her, a crumpled form by the river, unmoving save for the wind that tugged at her dress and hair. He dismounted swiftly, his spurs jingling as his boots hit the ground. As he approached, he could see it was a woman, her face pale against the dark mud, one hand protectively covering her rounded belly. "Madam," Wade called, dropping to his knees beside her. He placed gentle fingers against her neck and felt a faint pulse. "Madam, can you hear me?" Her eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes the color of spring violets. "My baby," she whispered. "Please, help my baby." The rain began to fall more heavily, and Wade knew he had precious little time. With careful movements, he gathered the unconscious woman into his arms, surprised at how light she felt despite her condition. Her skin burned with fever against his rain-dampened shirt. "Hold on, madam," he murmured, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "I've got you now." Wade managed to get her onto his horse, climbing up behind her and cradling her body against his chest. Thunder seemed to understand the urgency, responding to Wade's commands with newfound speed. The storm was unleashing its full fury now, lightning illuminating the darkened prairie in brilliant flashes. "Just 3 more miles," Wade told the unconscious woman, though his words were swallowed by the howling wind. "My cabin's not much, but it's dry and warm." He could feel her trembling against him, her breathing shallow. Worry gnawed at him. He knew nothing about birthing babies, and the nearest doctor was in Fort Laramie, at least a day's ride away. But the storm made travel impossible. They would have to weather it at his cabin. Thunder finally crested the small hill that led to Wade's modest homestead. The cabin was small but sturdy, built by Wade's own hands over the past 3 years since he'd claimed the land. A corral stood empty to the side, his other horses having taken shelter in the small barn. Dismounting carefully while supporting the woman's weight, Wade carried her to the cabin door, managing to push it open with his shoulder. The interior was simple: a stone fireplace, a wooden table with 2 chairs, a small kitchen area, and a bed in the corner. He gently laid the woman on his bed, quickly moving to stoke the dying embers in the fireplace. As warmth began to fill the cabin, Wade turned his attention back to his unexpected guest. Her clothes were soaked through, her face flushed with fever. He knew enough about sickness to recognize she needed dry clothes and medicine. "Madam," he tried again, gently touching her shoulder. "I need to get you into something dry. Do you understand me?" Her eyes opened slightly, confusion evident in their depths. "Where am I?" She whispered, her voice raspy. "My cabin. Found you collapsed by the river. I'm Wade Caldwell." He spoke softly, not wanting to frighten her. "What's your name, madam?" "Willow," she managed. "Willow Rose." Her hands moved protectively to her belly again as a spasm of pain crossed her face. Wade moved quickly, gathering a clean shirt and a pair of trousers that would fit over her swollen middle. "Miss Rose, you need to get out of those wet clothes. Can you manage, or do you need help?" Willow tried to sit up, but another wave of pain hit her, and she fell back with a soft cry. "The baby, something's wrong." Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. I think it's coming too early. Fear gripped Wade's heart. He had delivered foals and calves, but never a human child. Yet as he looked at the terrified woman on his bed, he knew he had no choice. I'll help you, Miss Rose. I promise. With as much decency as the situation allowed, Wade helped Willow out of her wet clothes and into his dry shirt. The large garment covered her adequately, and he quickly pulled a quilt over her lower half for modesty's sake. Her skin burned against his fingers, and he knew the fever needed addressing first. Wade moved to his small kitchen area, preparing a herbal tea his mother had taught him to make for fevers. As the water boiled, he gathered what clean linens he had, placing them nearby. Outside, the storm raged on, thunder shaking the small cabin. Here, he said, returning to Willow's side with the steaming cup. This will help with the fever, small sips. He helped her sit up slightly, supporting her back as she sipped the bitter liquid. Her violet eyes, though glazed with fever, studied his face. Why are you helping me? She asked softly. Couldn't very well leave you out there to die, Wade replied simply. No decent man would. There aren't many decent men left in this world, Mr. Caldwell. Bitterness tinged her voice as her free hand moved to her belly. Call me Wade, he said, taking the cup as she finished. And I'm sorry you've had cause to think that way. Another contraction seized her, and Willow gasped, clutching at Wade's hand with surprising strength. When it passed, she lay back, breathing heavily. How far along are you? Wade asked, wetting a cloth in cool water and placing it on her forehead. 6.5 months, Willow replied, her voice trembling. It's too soon. The baby can't come now. Wade had seen enough premature foals to know the danger. We'll do everything we can, he promised, though he feared it might be a promise he couldn't keep. Through the night, Willow's condition worsened. The contractions came with increasing frequency, and her fever climbed despite Wade's efforts. He kept the fire burning, boiled more water, and prayed harder than he had since his parents died of cholera 5 years earlier. Near dawn, Willow's water broke. Her cries of pain tore at Wade's heart as he tried to remember everything he'd ever overheard about childbirth. The storm continued outside as if echoing the turmoil within the cabin. Wade, Willow gasped, reaching for his hand. If I don't survive this, don't talk like that, he interrupted firmly. You're going to be fine, both of you. Listen to me, she insisted, her grip tightening. If I don't make it, please don't send my baby to an orphanage. Promise me. The desperation in her eyes shook Wade to his core. I promise, he said solemnly, but it won't come to that. Another contraction hit, more powerful than the last. It's time, Wade said, positioning himself at the foot of the bed. When I tell you, I need you to push, Willow. The next hour passed in a blur of pain and effort. Willow's strength amazed Wade as she fought to bring her child into the world. Finally, with one last monumental push, the baby slipped into Wade's waiting hands, tiny, red, and silent. For one terrible moment, Wade thought the child was stillborn. Then he remembered something a trail-hardened cowhand had once mentioned about rubbing a newborn's back to help it breathe. Gently, he turned the infant over and rubbed small circles on its back. A weak cry pierced the silence, and Wade felt a surge of relief so powerful it nearly brought him to his knees. It's a girl, he told Willow, wrapping the tiny infant in a clean shirt. A beautiful little girl. Willow's arms reached weakly for her daughter, and Wade carefully placed the baby against her chest. The new mother's tears fell freely as she gazed at her child. She's so small, she whispered. But she's fighting, Wade assured her, amazed at the protective feelings already surging through him for this woman and child he'd known less than a day. Just like her mama. As dawn broke, the storm finally began to subside. Willow's fever, however, raged on. Wade knew he needed to get her help, but couldn't leave her and the baby alone. Willow, he said gently, I need to ride to Fort Laramie for the doctor. Will you be all right for a few hours? Her eyes, bright with fever, found his. Don't leave us, she pleaded weakly. Please. Wade hesitated, torn between the need for medical help and her desperate request. Then he remembered his neighbor, an elderly man named Franklin who lived about an hour's ride away. I'll be back soon, he promised. I'm going to get my neighbor to ride for the doctor while I stay with you. Willow nodded, her eyes already drifting shut from exhaustion. The baby lay sleeping against her chest, her tiny breaths quick but steady. Wade saddled Thunder and rode hard to Franklin's homestead, explaining the situation. The old man agreed immediately to make the journey to Fort Laramie, and Wade returned to find Willow and the baby just as he'd left them. For 3 days, Wade tended to Willow and her daughter, whom she named Hope. The fever broke on the 2nd day, but Willow remained weak. Wade fed her broth and helped her nurse the tiny infant, turning away modestly when needed but always staying close enough to assist. On the afternoon of the 3rd day, the doctor finally arrived from Fort Laramie, looking exhausted from the hard ride. He examined both mother and child, his weathered face serious. "The little one is small but seems strong enough," he told them. "As for you, young lady, you've had a close call, another day in that storm, and I doubt either of you would have survived." "Then I owe Mr. Caldwell our lives," Willow said softly, looking at Wade with something more than gratitude in her eyes. The doctor nodded, packing his bag. "Indeed you do. I'd recommend you both stay put for at least a month. That baby needs time to grow stronger before any travel." After the doctor left, Wade sat beside the bed, watching as Willow nursed Hope. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," he said. "The cabin's not much, but it's yours until you're both strong enough to travel." Willow's eyes filled with tears. "You don't even know me, yet you've done more for me than anyone in my life." "I'd like to know you," Wade said simply, "if you're willing to tell me your story." And so, as the baby slept and the spring sun set over the prairie, Willow told Wade everything. She had been working as a schoolteacher in St. Louis when she met William Taylor, a charming man who promised her marriage and a new life in California. She had believed him, loved him, given herself to him only to discover she was pregnant just as he revealed he was already married with a family back east. "He abandoned me in Kansas City," she finished, her voice hollow. "I used what little money I had to try to reach my cousin in Denver, but it wasn't enough. The stagecoach driver put me off 50 miles back when I couldn't pay." Anger burned in Wade's chest at the thought of her treatment. "No one deserves that," he said, "especially not someone as brave as you." "Brave?" Willow gave a bitter laugh. "I was foolish, trusting a man I barely knew." "No," Wade said firmly. "Trusting isn't foolish. What's foolish is breaking that trust like he did." He reached out, hesitantly covering her hand with his. "And walking all this way, trying to save your baby, that's nothing but courage." Days turned into weeks, and as April gave way to May, both Willow and Hope grew stronger. Wade watched with wonder as the tiny infant gained weight, her cries becoming more robust. He found himself looking forward to the quiet evenings when Willow would sit by the fire, telling him about her life before, her dreams of teaching again someday. For her part, Willow discovered a gentle soul beneath Wade's weathered exterior. He was 32, having come west after the war, determined to build something that was truly his. He spoke little of his time in the Confederate Army, but she sensed the scars it had left. His parents and younger sister had died of cholera, leaving him alone in the world, a feeling Willow understood all too well. One evening, as they sat on the small porch Wade had built, watching the sunset paint the prairie in golds and purples, Willow realized she no longer thought about continuing to Denver. The idea of leaving Wade's cabin, leaving Wade, filled her with a sense of loss she hadn't expected. "Penny for your thoughts," Wade said, noticing her silence. Willow smiled, adjusting Hope in her arms. "I was just thinking how peaceful it is here, how safe I feel." Wade's blue eyes studied her face. "You and Hope could stay, you know, not just until you're well, but longer." Her heart skipped a beat. "What are you saying, Wade?" He cleared his throat, suddenly looking as nervous as a schoolboy. "I'm saying this place has felt more like a home since you two arrived. I'm saying I'd like you to consider staying permanently." "As what?" Willow asked, needing to hear the words. Wade took a deep breath. "As my wife, if you'd have me. I know it's sudden, and I know you've been hurt before. I'm not asking for an answer now, just think about it." Willow looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her arms, then back at Wade's earnest face. "I don't need to think about it," she said softly. "My answer is yes." The joy that transformed Wade's face made her heart soar. He reached for her hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture so gentle it brought tears to her eyes. "I'll be a good husband to you, Willow, and a father to Hope. That's my solemn promise." They were married 2 weeks later by the same doctor who had helped save Willow and Hope. The ceremony was simple, attended only by Franklin and a few neighbors Wade had invited. Willow wore a new dress Wade had ridden all the way to Laramie to purchase, and Hope was wrapped in a soft blanket one of the neighboring women had quilted as a gift. Life settled into a rhythm that summer. Wade taught Willow about ranching, and she surprised him with her willingness to learn and ability to adapt. In turn, she transformed the cabin into a true home, adding curtains to the windows and flowers in the yard. When Wade mentioned his regret at having little formal education, Willow began teaching him in the evenings, her face lighting up as she returned to her former profession. Hope thrived under their care, growing from a fragile newborn into a chubby, laughing baby with Wade's blue eyes and Willow's auburn hair. Though not his by blood, Wade doted on the child as if she were his own. He built her a cradle from pine wood, carving little stars and moons into the headboard. One evening in late summer, as they sat together watching the fireflies dance over the prairie, Wade turned to Willow with a serious expression. "There's something I want to show you tomorrow," he said. "Been working on it for a while." The next day, Wade led Willow and Hope to a clearing about half a mile from their cabin. There, to Willow's astonishment, stood the frame of a new house larger, with multiple rooms clearly taking shape. "Wade," she breathed. "What is this?" "Our future," he said simply. "A proper home for our family. There'll be a room for Hope and more rooms for the brothers and sisters I hope she'll have someday." He looked at her questioningly. "If that's what you want too." Willow handed Hope to him and walked around the structure, touching the solid beams with wonder. "You built this for us. When did you find the time?" "Been working on it at dawn before you wake up," Wade admitted. "And Franklin's sons have helped some. Do you like it?" In answer, Willow threw her arms around him in Hope, tears of joy streaming down her face. "I love it." "And I love you, Wade Caldwell." It was the first time she had said the words, though they had been married for months. Wade's eyes shone as he held his family close. "I love you too, Willow, both of you." That autumn, as the leaves turned golden and the first frost touched the prairie, Willow discovered she was expecting Wade's child. The news filled their home with even more joy as they prepared for the new addition to their family. The new house was completed before the first snowfall, a testament to Wade's determination and the community's support. It stood 2 stories tall, with 4 bedrooms upstairs and an airy kitchen and living area below. Wade had even incorporated a small room that would serve as a classroom, knowing Willow's dream of teaching again someday. As Christmas approached, Willow reflected on the incredible change a single year had brought. The previous December, she had been alone, frightened, and betrayed in Kansas City. Now she sat by a crackling fire in her own home, Hope playing on a quilt at her feet, her husband carving a set of wooden animals as a Christmas gift for their daughter. "What are you thinking about that's put such a smile on your face?" Wade asked, looking up from his work. "About how close I came to never finding this happiness," Willow replied honestly. "If you hadn't found me by that river." Wade set aside his carving and moved to sit beside her, pulling her close. "But I did find you, and I'll be grateful for that every day of my life." The winter passed peacefully, with occasional visits from neighbors and trips into town for supplies. Hope took her first steps in January, toddling precariously across the wooden floor while her parents watched with pride. Willow's pregnancy progressed smoothly, her body stronger this time, nurtured by love and security. In early April of 1876, almost exactly a year after Hope's birth, Wade and Willow welcomed their son, William Franklin Caldwell, named for Franklin, who had ridden through the storm to fetch the doctor, potentially saving Willow and Hope's lives. As Wade placed his newborn son in Hope's special cradle, with the little girl watching curiously from her mother's side, he reflected on how his life had changed since that stormy day by the river. He had been content before, but not truly happy, not until Willow and Hope had filled the emptiness he hadn't even recognized within himself. "They're perfect," he whispered, returning to sit beside Willow on the bed, one arm around her shoulders, the other gently touching his son's cheek. "Our family," Willow agreed, leaning against him. "Our miracle." Over the next few years, the Caldwell ranch prospered. Wade's careful management and hard work expanded their cattle herd, while Willow began teaching the children from neighboring homesteads 3 days a week. Hope grew into a lively, intelligent child with her mother's love of books and her father's affinity for horses. Young William, or Liam as they called him, was quieter but equally bright, following Wade around the ranch from the moment he could walk. When Hope was 5, Wade legally adopted her, making official what had been true in his heart since the day of her birth. The little girl had known no father but Wade, and the ceremony at the county courthouse was more a formality than a change. Still, Wade knelt before her afterward, presenting her with a small locket containing a family portrait. "You've always been my daughter," he told her solemnly. "From the very first moment I held you, this just makes it so everybody else knows it too." "I know, Papa," Hope replied, throwing her arms around his neck. "I've always known." As the years passed, their family grew again with the addition of twin girls, Emma and Elizabeth, born on a crisp autumn day in 1879. The Caldwell home rang with children's laughter, and neighbors often commented on the visible love between Wade and Willow, still as strong as when they'd first married. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Wade surprised Willow by taking her back to the spot by the Platte River where he had found her. The river was calm now, flowing gently beneath a clear blue sky so different from the raging waters of that stormy night. "Why did you bring me here?" Willow asked, curious about her husband's sentimental gesture. Wade took her hands in his blue eyes as earnest as they had been when he'd proposed. "Because this is where our story began. This is where I found the greatest treasure of my life." Willow's eyes filled with tears as she looked from the peaceful river to the man who had saved her in every way a person could be saved. "I was so afraid that day," she whispered. "I thought Hope and I would die here. Instead, it was the place where we all started to live," Wade said. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet pouch. "I had this made for you." Inside was a silver bracelet, delicately crafted with 5 small charms: a river, a cabin, a baby cradle, a house, and a heart. "Our story," Wade explained, "from that first day to forever." As he fastened it around her wrist, Willow thought about the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. From desperation to love, from near death to abundant life. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "people might call what happened to us chance or coincidence that you happened to be riding by just when I collapsed." Wade shook his head. "I don't believe that. I believe I was meant to find you that day, that you and Hope were meant to be part of my life. And that we were meant to build this beautiful family together," Willow finished, stepping into his embrace. As they stood by the river where their journey had begun, Wade and Willow held each other close, grateful for the storm that had brought them together and the love that had seen them through to calmer waters. Their story, born in crisis and desperation, had blossomed into something neither could have imagined on that fateful day, a testament to the healing power of love and the unexpected ways in which lives can be transformed when compassion meets courage on the wild frontier.